References to Planet X or Nibiru are found in chronicles of many ancient peoples of the world: Sumer, Akkad, Assyria, Babylon, ancient Egypt, South American Indians, Dagon, and many others. The names of each nation are different, but the descriptions of this object are similar: a reddish ball with wings. It found reflection in folklore and myths, firmly entered into the world culture. Comet, Nibiru, Marduk, the dragon, Wormwood, Apocalypse, the Book of Revelation, Medusa, Typhon, Garuda, Ermengarde, the Destroyer. This is not a complete list of his projection. What is Nibiru in the modern sense? Today this name denotes a mysterious planet that threatens to destroy life on Earth. Disputes about its existence have been going on for decades, but so far no one has been able to prove anything, but everything in order. The origins of knowledge about Planet X lie in ancient times. More than 6,000 years ago, in the area of Mesopotamia appeared out of nowhere the unique civilization of the Sumerians, which had all the features of higher developed. It's enough to mention that the Sumerians used the ternary counting system and used the Fibonacci numbers. Sumerians' texts contain information about the origin, development, and structure of the solar system. However, there are differences in their image of the solar system, the main of which is that the Sumerians place an unknown large planet between Mars and Jupiter, the 12th planet according to the Sumerian system. This mysterious planet Sumerians called Nibiru, which means crossing the planet. The orbit of this planet, a strongly elongated ellipse, once in 3,600 years crossed the solar system. According to the Sumerians, the planet Nibiru was inhabited by highly developed creatures, Anunnaki. They were real giants. Women were between 3 and 3.7 meters tall, and men were between 4 and 5 meters tall. An indirect confirmation of the presence of the Anunnaki on Earth in those immemorial days can be the burials of giants scattered all over the planet. For example, the famous tomb in the Shiite Muslim mosque of Nabi Habil in Syria. According to legend, the remains of the Old Testament Abel, killed by his brother, are buried here. The length of the grave of Abel is about 7 meters. The tombstone itself is made of a granite structure 5 meters long. And there are many such examples, but this is already a topic for a separate issue, which you will definitely see on our channel by subscribing and putting a finger up under this video. According to Sumerian manuscripts, the Anunnaki first arrived on Earth about 445,000 years ago. They were interested in minerals, first of all gold. Why? If it takes as a basis the version of the ecological catastrophe on the 12th planet of the solar system, then we could talk about creating a protective gold-bearing screen for the planet. Note that a technology similar to the proposed one is used now in the space projects. According to the annals, the Anunnaki were engaged in gold mining in Southeast Africa long enough, from 100 to 150,000 years. Every 3,600 years, when the planet Nibiru appeared near the Earth, gold reserves were sent to it. And then, as expected, a rebellion broke out. Long-lived Anunnaki, tired of working in the mines for hundreds of thousands of years. And then the leaders decided to create primitive creature to replace the workers in the mines. The whole process of creating person, or the process of mixing divine and earthly components, the process of in vitro fertilization, is painted with the details on clay tablets and depicted on cylindrical seals of Sumerian chronicles. The ancient Jewish Bible, the Torah, which was born on the ruins of Sumer, attributed the act of creating a man to Elohim. The world is given in the plural and shall be translated as gods. But the purpose of creating a person is defined very precisely, and there was no person for the cultivation of the land. The ruler of Nibiru, Anu, and the chief scientist of the Anunnaki, Enki, decided to create Adamu. This word comes from Adamah, earth, and means earthly, but the Anunnaki didn't give us longevity by giving us their image and intellectual development abilities. Apparently suspected that people will be able to develop enough in the future to make serious competition. The Torah says Elohim uttered the phrase, Adam became like one of us, and now, as he did not stretch out his hand, and did not take the same from the tree of life, and did not eat and did not live forever. Relatively recently, as a result of thorough DNA research, the biologist Wesley Brown made an interesting discovery about the same for all people of the earth, Eve, who lived in Africa about 250,000 years ago. It turned out that the first human being came from the very valley where, according to Sumer, gold was mined for the Anunnaki. Later, when the women of the earth acquired an attractive appearance, the Anunnaki began to take them as wives, which contribute the development of intelligence of the next generation of people. In the Bible of the Moses, the following is said about this. Then the sons of God saw the daughters of men, and they began to give birth to them. But let's go back to our days. What does modern science tell us about Nibiru? Attempts to search for it by astronomers began relatively recently. In 1978, scientists discovered the satellite of Pluto, which made it possible to clarify the size of the planet itself, as well as the trajectory of neighboring Uranus and Neptune. After that, Robert Harrington and Tom Van Flandern, American experts in the field of celestial mechanics from the U.S. Naval Observatory in Washington, began to talk about what found another planet. They argued that this celestial body is 3 to 4 times larger than the Earth, and its period of rotation around the Sun is very large. Further research and calculations have shown that the mysterious celestial body must have a mass 3 to 4 times the mass of the Earth. It was called Planet X. In December 1981, Astronomy magazine reported, studying the telemetry data coming from the spacecraft Pioneer 10, Pioneer 11, and Voyager, scientists led by Thomas Van Flandern came to the conclusion that a certain planet is hidden in 2.5 billion kilometers behind Pluto. And already on June 17, 1982, in an official statement, NASA recognized that 2 spacecraft under the program Pioneer engaged in the search for Planet X. The revealed perturbation of orbits of Uranus and Neptune give good reason to assume that the mysterious object really exists, much beyond the known planets, the space agency said in a statement. December 30, 1983, in the page of the newspaper Washington Post appeared an article in which it was reported that astronomers from the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena and Palomar Observatory in California succeeded with the help of an infrared astronomical satellite, ERAS, to detect huge astronomical bodies the size of Jupiter, which have never been recorded with the optical telescope before. This was explained by the low body temperature and the dust clouds surrounding it, which gave it the property of not reflecting light. And here is an interesting excerpt from an article by Newsweek magazine dated July 13, 1987. At a press conference convened by NASA last week at its California Research Center in Ames, a strange statement was made that the hypothetical 10th planet may or may not belong to the solar system. The keynote speaker, John Anderson, a NASA researcher, made it clear that the 10th planet probably exists, only it is very far from the other 9. Despite the abundance of facts and evidence, after only a few years, the position of officials regarding the existence of Nibiru has changed dramatically, sliding to the completely denial of its existence. Although NASA images taken, for example, with the Hubble telescope, despite censorship, you can often find a rather large object with wings that differs perfectly with the description of Planet X. Strange, isn't it? And what do you say that in the last 10 years the profession of astronomer has become 2 orders of magnitude more dangerous than the profession of test pilot? Astronomers around the world paying attention to the problems of Nibiru and dying from some strange epidemic of suicides, strokes and car accidents. Is this a normal set of circumstances? The starting point for the beginning of the concealment of data and all subsequent events related to this can be considered July 1985, when scientists, officials and astronauts from the United States and USSR met in Washington, allegedly to celebrate the decade of the docking of the Soyuz and Apollo. In October of the same year, several American congressmen, government officials, and former astronauts were first invited by the USSR Academy of Science to visit Soviet space objects. Why such a rush to reveal the plans and secrets of the Soviet space program? Maybe there was a special reason, some important circumstances that suddenly changed the situation and set new priorities to such an extent that it was necessary to restore the Union during the Second World War? But in that case, who is the common enemy now? Against whom did the United States and the Soviet Union coordinate their space programs? In November 1985, Reagan and Gorbachev met and ushered in a new era of cooperation, trust and understanding. The Reagan was asked how he would explain his 180-degree turn, to which the president replied that the two countries have common interests in space. Moreover, he said that there was the threat from space to all the people of the Earth, which forces to engage in the creation of space defense. So, what do we know about Nibiru? Why is data about its existence are stored under the signature stamp confidentially? If we take as a basis the information published in the 80s, when the scientific articles about the discovery of a large celestial body were not banned, we get the following. The size of the planet is several times larger than the Earth. The object is moving towards the center of the solar system, visible only in the southern hemisphere. It has an unimaginable amount of space debris around it and about 7 of its own satellites, possible more. It is already both surrounded by dust clouds, the basis of which is iron oxide. Due to the action of solar gravity, clouds take a bizarre shape resembling wings. Tail trailing behind Nibiru, similar in shape like a huge red drop. So, by combining the fragmentary scientific data that we have and having conducted an analysis of the legends that have came down to us from the depths of ages, one can describe in detail the things and events that will occur as Nibiru approaches our planet. Perturbations of orbits of outer planets Neptune and Uranus, the strongest perturbation of the Earth's magnetic field, the displacement of the magnetic poles and strong geomagnetic storms. In the last few years, the magnetic field displacement has increased 5 times and continues to gain momentum. For example, the South magnetic pole has already moved to 900 kilometers and went into the Indian Ocean, and the North magnetic pole rushes towards Siberia at a speed of 55 to 60 kilometers per year. Since the object is accompanied by an calculable amount of debris, meteorites, comets and asteroids, we should expect the emergence of new comets and asteroids in the dangerous vicinity of the Earth. Mass observatories of materials and fireballs. The approach of Nibiru is also evidenced by the growing number of natural disasters around the planet. The latest confirmation is the abnormally high number of earthquakes: Russia, Kamchatka, Sakhalin, China, Greece, Mexico, the Indian Ocean, and these are only the loudest. In addition, the most dangerous volcanoes of the world are awakened, including Popocatépetl in Mexico, Vesuvius and Elbrus volcanoes in Europe, and the Yellowstone supervolcano in the US. The moment the object passes near the ground will cause terrible consequences. The fallout of red iron dust, which will paint the water in some vast regions of the Earth in red. This dust contains nickel in its composition. In this regard, people and animals will experience strong allergic reaction on the skin. The close presence of a giant satellite body will cause the Earth to slow its rotation. This will be followed by an impressive meteor shower. Contained in the tail of the planet X, hydrocarbons fall to the ground will burn forests. It is possible that the tail of Nibiru contains huge reservoirs of water. This frozen water will rush to the ground and flood some part of the territory, as it was written in ancient legends. As the great saline waters rise when it arrives in the roaring rains fall to the ground, even heroes among mortal men will fall into madness. The Bible says, "And the flood continued on the earth for 40 days, and the water was multiplied." In 2006, the United States built in Antarctica infrared telescope, South Pole Telescope, but what he is studying the world community learned only in February 2008, when an anonymous user posted in YouTube a small video with images of the planet Nibiru. He accompanied him with the following words: "I work at the Amundsen Scott Station on the SPT telescope. Nibiru, which many call Planet X, actually exists. This video will be short and presented in the interest of the humanity. The reason for the publication of this clip is that I do not believe that this information will be brought to the world community. Here I present infrared footage of Nibiru approaching with the 5 objects visible in the picture. Photo number 750,069 with the use of changed colors, Thales color. The object is moving towards us, and it will become visible to every person on Earth within the next few years. This is a matter of national security, and governments around the world are trying to do everything possible to prevent global panic. They are also trying to attract the best professionals to fight this inevitable event. And it really is. More recently, data leaked to the internet according to which, during the Obama presidency, negotiations took place between the US Federal Service for Emergency Situations and the Russian Ministry of Emergency Situations, during which the Obama administration requires at least 15,000 well-trained Russian military personnel in case natural disaster and performing ground control function, riot control. Units should be placed in Region 3 according to FEMA classification in advance during some upcoming disaster. That in the case of the approach of Planet X is justified. When the world community is aware of the reality of danger, panic will rise. Likely in all countries will try to build order soldiers from neighboring countries. For example, Russians in the US, Americans in Russia, Germans in France, British in Germany. It will be easy to quell the unrest. Another information leaked in the world media occurred already this year. A number of news agencies reported that an emergency meeting will be held in Europe in April. The main theme of the meeting will be the safety of mankind, which is threatened by aliens. It is noted that researchers from France, Japan, Austria and other countries will attend the event. At the same time, Americans and Russians who allegedly possess a large amount of data about Nibiru and have their own opinion on this problem will not arrive at the meeting. The meeting will be completely closed to the press, so it is logical to assume that this time, however, like the last 20 years, scientists will not want to share information about the existence of the mystical planet with ordinary people. But really, after being fascinated by the search for Planet X, you and I completely forgot about its inhabitants, the Anunnaki, who, according to the Sumerian chronicles, are our creators. Assuming their reality, how will they react to the modern civilization of people? Wouldn't the creation of the hands be deemed too dangerous? This may be evidenced by the increased number of messages from the United States and Russia, first-degree contacts meeting with UFOs that literally flooded the planet in the last couple of months. The first wave of newcomers surged over the American continent. Multiple contacts were recorded in the mountains of Venezuela, in the USA, Brazil and Mexico. But immediately after there were reports of such contacts from Russia, Irkutsk, Magadan, Khabarovsk, Europe, Australia. Perhaps these Anunnaki reconnaissance ships are already evaluating us, looking for weaknesses before the coming invasion of Earth. It seems that these questions was also asked by the Chinas, who are currently actively working on the project on artificial sun and an infinite source of energy, working on the principle of imitation of nuclear fusion, which aims to release a huge amount of energy. Such a seemingly fantastic project of China's physicists and engineers should be broadly regarded as a possible response of the China's government to the threat from Nibiru, which is increasing with every passing day. The fact that they plan to commission their space station by the end of the 2019 speaks about the urgency of this event by China's military engineers and physicists. It is possible that this station can be used to burn large space objects with huge and uncontrolled plasma flows. Their subject includes spacecraft inhabitants of Planet X. It is absolutely clear that the media, at the suggestion of the authorities, are actively trying to disguise information about Nibiru by disinformation, like the one of the was recently about the comet Yelenin or the asteroid 2019 EA2, which flew past our planet at a distance of 0.8 lunar distances. The lines pass, comets fly away or fall apart, and people start to believe that Planet X is another duck. However, Nibiru does not stop like that. It slowly and inexorably approaches us, and only a clear joint action of the inhabitants of all countries will be able to stop the threat hanging over our civilization. And this can be achieved only by removing the total censorship surrounding Planet X.